Hey folks, this is Kalani. We have some huge class changes, buffs and nerfs to go over this week. Some classes and specs are even getting completely reworked. By the looks of things, patch 10.2 might just have the most class changes of any patch we've had so far in Dragonflight, which is very exciting. There are also some more changes to how the weekly vault will reward loot in the next patch, and crafted gear might be getting a pretty large nerf. There's a lot to talk about, so let's break it all down. Now before we jump in, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. Let's start with the class changes because we have a whole bunch of updates to go through. This is probably the most updates we've ever seen in a first build of a patch on PTR, so if things continue this way, patch 10.2 will probably end up being the largest set of class changes we've seen so far. As always, we'll have timestamps for you to skip around, and we're going to start with the Death Knights. Unholy Assault now increases damage dealt by 20% instead of granting 20% haste. Raised dead damage was increased by 10%, but Gargoyle damage is down 30%. Soul Reaper was buffed up 20%, but Army of the Dead Ghouls will deal 25% less damage. Ghouls summoned by Apocalypse now have their own scaling separate from Army of the Dead, which lets the dev team tune them independently. Apocalypse Ghoul damage was increased by 12%, Death Coil and Scourge Strike damage are both up 12%, Festering Strike will be increased by 20%, and Festering Wound was buffed up by 10%, so quite a few buffs coming through for Unholy Death Knights, as well as some interesting switcheroos. Now you may have heard that Demon Hunters are one of the classes expecting a big rework in this patch, and you would be correct. Unfortunately, the Demon Hunter changes were not ready for this first PTR build, so we don't have anything to look at just yet. Hopefully they come through with the next PTR build, so keep an eye out for another class update video. Druids are getting a lot of changes once again. I'm kind of surprised about this. I feel like Druids might be one of the most changed classes since Dragonflight launched at this point, but to start with, Innovate is only going to last 8 seconds, down from 10. For balance specifically, they're going to get a 2% damage increase across the board, Nature's Grace was knocked down to 10% haste, Power of Galdrin was buffed up by 20% and moved in the talent tree, Rattle the Stars is getting redesigned, Orbital Strike is also being redesigned, Fungal Growth is being removed and baked into Wild Mushrooms is getting nerfed, and the now baked in Fungal Growth damage will also be reduced. For Feral, Apex Predator will trigger more against low target count and less against high target counts, Cat's Curiosity has been replaced, and Ashamane's Guidance has been redesigned. And for Resto Druid, a few talents have been redesigned or removed. Grove Tender was buffed up by 30%, Grove Guardian's Nourish was nerfed by 16%, its Swiftmend was taken down by 20%, and its Wild Growth was also nerfed by 20%. Luxuriant Soil was nerfed, Regrowth's Initial Heal was buffed up by 20%, and its Heal Over Time effect was increased by 42%, Rejuvenation is up 25%, Wild Growth is getting a 15% buff, Wrath and Starfire damage will see a 90% increase, Cenarian Ward and Swiftmend are both getting buffed, Inner Peace was nerfed down to 30 seconds from 60 seconds, and Spring Blossoms and Embrace of the Dream are both getting nerfed. Flourish will see a pretty bad nerf by the looks of things, its duration was decreased, the rate was reduced, and Flourish procs from Convoke were also getting nerfed. And just for good measure, both the Aberr's 2-set and 4-set bonuses are getting nerfed as well, so a lot of back and forth for Resto Druid. Evokers have a handful of changes too. Devastation will see a 5% damage boost across the board, but their mastery is changing quite a lot as well. It's being reduced by 25%, so you'll get less percent bonus for each point of mastery you have, but the damage bonus will no longer reduce beyond 30% health of your target. So instead of your damage decreasing until a mob dies, your damage will only decrease until the mob hits 30% health, and from that point on, you'll keep the damage bonus from your mastery as if the target had 30% health. That's how I read this update anyway. That's a good thing, especially for raiding, and being less reliant on your mastery and Dragon Rage for dealing damage will smooth out your overall damage output in any type of content. Preservation will also have a few changes. Spirit Bloom is getting buffed by 25%, Living Flame is up 20%, Verdant Embrace will see a 35% increase, Resonating Sphere only applies Echo to 3 players instead of 5, and Cycle of Life was nerfed down to 10% from 15%. For the Hunters, Beast Mastery has seen quite a few changes. Aspect of the Wild has been removed, there are various new talents, some other talents have been redesigned, Thrill of the Hunt is now a 2-point talent, Dire Command is a 2-point talent, and Snake Bite was also removed. For marksmanship, they have just one change really. Windrunner's Guidance has been redesigned to reduce the cooldown of rapid fire and extend the duration of your next true shot to make it a more reliable option. And then for survival, Wildfire Bomb has a tooltip update, they deal 40% more damage to your primary target, and the Aberrus foreset has been changed. The Paladins only have a few changes for Holy this week. To start with, a 3% nerf to all of their healing, Holy Light is getting buffed up by 40%, Flash of Light is up 30%, Daybreak will restore less mana, Reclamation was nerfed down to 12%, Glimmer of Light healing and damage per target was reduced down to 4% from 6%, but Glimmer of Light's base damage is getting buffed up by 10%. That's all for the Paladins this week, I'm afraid. Priests are up next, starting with Discipline. This is one of the specs that will see a lot of attention in this patch. I'm not sure if it qualifies to call it a rework, but they're definitely changing quite a lot. Schism will now be a passive talent and tied to Mind Blast. Shadow Covenant will also be a passive tied to Shadow Fiend or Mindbender. Mind Blast also had its cooldown massively increased, but it will deal 30% more damage. Inescapable Torment was buffed up by 60% and will now trigger from Penance as well. Power Word Soulless is being removed entirely, Harsh Discipline has been redesigned, there are various new talents to explore, Penance damage is up 15% and healing up 30%. Power Word Barrier was nerfed down to a 20% damage reduction, Atonement seems to have been nerfed down to 32% again, but Atonement healing will increase by 50% when not in a raid, making dungeons much easier. Flash Heal was also buffed up by 40%, Power Word Shield is up 10%, and then Light's Wrath, Resplendent Light, Wrath Unleashed and Make Amends were all removed. The goal of these changes seems to be to try and make Disc easier and simpler to play, so let's see how it pans out over the course of the PTR. Holy has some interesting changes too. Serenity is getting buffed up by 30%, Flash Heal is up 40%, but Holy Word Salvation's cooldown reduction is getting cut in half, only 15 seconds per Holy Word, down from 30 seconds per Holy Word used. This may have been nerfed due to the new set bonus coming our way, but it still isn't ideal. Symbol of Hope is getting nerfed down to 10% mana from 15%, and it only recovers 40 seconds of a major defensive, down from 60 seconds. Holy Word Sanctify now only heals 5 allies instead of 6, Divine Star healing is getting nerfed by 25%, and Halo healing will be nerfed by 15% as well. So lots of AoE heal nerfs, some mana regen nerfs, and then single target healing buffs. For Shadow specifically, Shadow Crash damage will be reduced beyond 5 targets, Surge of Insanity will proc from every 3 casts of Devouring Plague instead of every cast, Mind Flay damage is up 10%, Mind Flay Insanity is up 30%, and Mind Spike Insanity was buffed up by 20% as well. Moving on, monks have a few changes for Mistweaver, Life Cocoon is up 33%, Soothing Mist is getting buffed by 40%, and Enveloping Mist will see a 25% increase. Misty Peaks is getting cut in half, Enveloping Breath will hit 1 less target, Invigorating Mists was buffed up, but it will be reduced beyond 5 targets. Burst of Life Healing was increased by 100%, Vivified Direct Healing is up 30%, Clouded Focus is getting knocked down to 15%, Ancient Teachings had its ranged increase, and then the Aberrus 2 set bonus has also been redesigned, so some buffs and some nerfs for the healing monks. Rogues have one of the longer lists of changes this week, so buckle in because every spec is getting a big rework in this patch. There are a whole bunch of changes to the general class tree, so you will want to hop onto the PTR to check those out if you're interested. Sap is now a baseline ability, Shiv is getting a 20% damage buff but will cost more energy and have a longer cooldown, and there are many new talents to check out, some talents are being moved around, and there are some nice buffs thrown in there as well. For Assassination specifically, Shadow Step is now a baseline ability, a whole bunch of talents are being reduced to just 1-pointers, a lot of talents are being shifted around in the tree, and then there are several new talents being added in. Throne Precision is changing how it interacts with Fan of Knives, Seal Fate is in the Assassination tree, Crimson Tempest has been adjusted, Exsanguinate has been redesigned, and there are various other minor changes and tweaks to other talents. For Outlaw, Grappling Hook, Blade Flurry, Roll the Bones, and Restless Blades are all baseline abilities, freeing up a lot of talent points. The talent tree has moved around, with quite a few new talents being added in to accommodate those free abilities. Between the Eyes is now going to be a buff on the rogue instead of it being a debuff on your target, which is a huge quality of life adjustment. A lot of talents have been redesigned or adjusted. Improved Adrenaline maxes your energy instead of combo points at the end of it. Ghostly Strike has been buffed up but has a longer cooldown. Dreadblades will grant full combo points instead of a flat 5. Killing Spree is now a capstone talent. It's been changed to be a finishing move. Its damage was buffed up and it will now interact with haste. For Subtlety, Shadow Step and Black Powder are now baseline abilities. Backstab energy cost was increased, Shadow Strike energy cost and damage were increased, Shadow Technique has been adjusted, Find Weakness is a 1 talent point, Shadow Blades affects all damage but the bonus was reduced. There are various new talents, the talent tree has shifted around a lot, Eviscerate damage was increased, a bunch of talents are now just 1 point which will free up some other talent points, and there are a few other smaller changes towards the bottom. Rogues are definitely one to keep an eye on this patch. Usually these massive overhauls have left classes either super OP or a little bit broken, so hopefully rogues end up in a pretty good spot when the dust settles. Shamans also have a handful of changes to go over. Mana Spring was nerfed for every spec to provide less mana overall. For enhancement, Primordial Wave spell damage has been increased by a whopping 500%, so that will definitely pack more of a punch going forward. And for restoration, Healing Stream, Healing Surge and Healing Wave will all see some nice buffs, 20% and 30% depending on the spell. Primordial Wave replicates healing at 40% down from 60%. Cloudburst Totem was also nerfed down to 20% from 30%. Ascendance is also taking a hit, that's down to an 80% buff from a 100% buff. Mana Tide Totem is also being nerfed to provide less mana regen, and Resurgence will restore 20% less mana as well. Then we finally come to the Warlocks, who are the last class on this week's list of changes. Affliction only has the one change. Grand Warlock's design is being redesigned to reduce the cooldown of Summon Dark Glare. Demonology has a lot of changes though. Several talents and passives are being redesigned. Demonic Knowledge is being nerfed down to a 10% chance. There are a handful of new talents. Demonic Core is being baked into Demon Bolt by the looks of things. There's a 30% damage boost for Shadow Bolt, 15% buff for Demon Bolt, and a 15% buff for Vile Fiend as well. For Destruction, Madness of Azakia is being removed, there's a new talent to take its place, Chaos Bolt damage is getting buffed up by 15%, and Grand Warlock's design will reduce the cooldown on Summon Infernal. That's all of the class changes we have to look at this week. Remember that these are also for the patch 10.2 PTR, so you won't see any of these changes on live servers just yet. They are also all subject to change, and if your class was not listed here, that just means we didn't have any updates on the PTR this week to talk about. With how many class changes we have in this first build, I would expect to see a huge number of class changes overall when patch 10.2 eventually hits live servers, so there's plenty of time left for your class to get some much needed buffs or nerfs. Now moving on, another big piece of news this week revolves around crafted gear. You may have heard that crafted gear will be significantly less powerful in patch 10.2 when compared to previous major patches or seasons of Dragonflight. We've seen numbers floating around that put fully upgraded crafted gear around the heroic raid item level instead of the mythic raid item level. That would make crafted gear progression much worse when compared to every other area of the game, especially when the enchanted crests still use high level crests like Worm and Aspect to upgrade your crafted gear. Well, I'm glad to tell you that these numbers are wrong. According to Blizzard, the numbers in the current PTR build are not accurate, and they also provided updated numbers to set our minds at ease. So the real numbers for crafted gear are 431 to 444 item level for enchanted Whelpling Crest crafted gear, 447 to 460 for base Spark crafted gear, 460 to 473 for enchanted Worm upgraded crafted gear, and then 470 to 483 for the enchanted Aspect upgraded crafted gear. So it is very much in line with the expected item levels when compared to raid gear especially, so the panic is mostly from incorrect information, so don't worry if you are thinking crafted gear wouldn't be worth upgrading in Season 3, it will still be a great source of easy high item level gear. Now it is worth noting that these item levels are still a little lower when you compare them directly to their effectiveness in Season 2, but only just and so. They're about 3 item levels lower than they would have been, so it's almost negligible. eligible. The more important change in Season 3 is the extension of the Myth upgrade track, because we can upgrade Myth gear even further than before, and crafted gear still has a hard limit on how far it can go. Any gear that drops on the Myth track will be much better than crafted gear. So crafted gear won't be as good in Season 3, but that's mainly because we can upgrade gear further, and not because crafted gear was actually nerfed. And then to wrap up this video, one other change we have is to the Great Vault. Getting your raid rewards in will be a bit easier next season. The boss kill requirements are being lowered from 3, 5, and 7 down to 2, 4, and 7. So to max out the rewards, you are still going to need to get 7 boss kills in, but the first and second option will be a bit easier to get your hands on. And then just in case you didn't know, in Season 3 the Great Vault dungeon row will also take heroic dungeons, mythic 0 dungeons, as well as time walking dungeons as eligible content to fill up those reward options. So even if you just run a couple of heroic dungeons in a week, you'll be able to get some shiny new rewards in the Great Vault on reset day, so that's going to be nice as well. But that's all the class changes we have for the first PTR build of 10.2, and what a crazy list we have so far. I guess we now know why we didn't see many changes in 10.17. They were saving them all up for 10.2. What do you think about so many classes getting big reworks? Are there any other classes you think still need a big rework that don't have anything as of yet? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to all of our members here on YouTube. You can see the names floating by on screen. If you'd like to add your name to the end of every video and a special shout out at the start of the next video, you can find links in the description over to Patreon or click the join button just below this video. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.